Good evening, everybody. Thanks for attending this hybrid meeting for planning, Tuesday the 3rd of November 2020. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the committee, Councillor Chris Francis, Vice Chair. Also present are officers and councillors who will be asked to introduce themselves in a moment. Please note that this is a hybrid meeting. We have some members here in the Lancastrian and some members joining from home via Teams. We also have registered speakers joining remotely. A recording of the meeting will be available following the meeting. If you've joined the call or are attending in Committee Room 1 because you're a member of the public who's registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. If you're calling on a phone, you'll need to press *6 to unmute your device when invited to speak. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and will confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if in the middle of making a point, wind up. Otherwise, your microphone will be muted. For ease, a pack's been prepared containing the report, plans, presentation slides and any addendum for each item to ensure everyone can easily follow the agenda. This is available online. After officers have presented the report and any speakers have made representations, I will invite members to make any comments. When speaking, please reference the paragraph and page number to enable everyone to follow you. I'll repeat the motion before the vote's taken to ensure everyone is aware of what is being voted upon, and I'll call upon each member alphabetically to vote if necessary. If the technology fails, then I'll adjourn the meeting for a few minutes to try and resolve the issue. If this isn't possible, a new date and time will be organised. Can I please ask members to confirm they can hear and speak before the meeting begins? I'll call out each member alphabetically. Councillor Beaver. I'll come back to him. Councillor Boardman.
Yes, Chair. Present.
Councillor Dalton. You're muted.
I'm muted. Yes, Chair. Present.
Councillor Gordon France.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Danny G.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Tom Gray.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Yvonne Hargreaves.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Alex Hilton.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Alistair Morwood.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Neville Whittam.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Alan Whittaker.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Chris France.
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Beaver. It seems like he's not with us. Also, our officers Adele, who's the service planning.
I'm here, Chair.
Ian.
Yes, Chair.
Alex Jackson.
Yes, Chair.
Nina, Democratic Services
Yes,
Officer.
Chair.
Right. Everybody's present and correct. I can see. Item, I've had no apologies. Minutes of the meeting of Tuesday the 6th of October, pages 3 to 6. Can somebody propose those, please? Thanks, Councillor
I
Hilton.
propose those, Chair.
Who was that? Councillor. I'm looking on here. Thanks, Councillor France. Anybody not in favour of accepting those minutes, please speak now. Right, the silence says everybody's happy with those. Have I any declarations of interest? Members are reminded of responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of the matters in the agenda. As it's a hybrid meeting, if a member has an interest, they are requested to vacate the Lancastrian for the item or leave the call completely rather than just mute their microphone. The member can return to Lancastrian and rejoin the meeting following the completion of the item in question. No, moving on to planning applications to be determined. We have 6 items to be determined. For the benefit of the public here tonight, the speaking arrangements for planning are as follows. The officers will summarise the report. Registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order: objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from the ward councillor, who may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain silent throughout the proceedings and ask that mobile phones are switched to silent also. With that, we're moving on to item 3A, land adjacent to 715 Preston Road, Clayton Woods, pages 7 to 36, with an update on your addendum, although the recommendation remains the same. Ian's going to present this item, and I have two registered speakers, the objector, Tim Vincent Barwood, and the agent, Rachel Leather. Tim and Rachel, can you confirm that you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
Yes, Chair.
Tim? Yes, excellent. Right,
Chair,
Ian,
thank you.
can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks full planning permission for the erection of 6 dwellings with access, parking, landscaping and associated works following the demolition of the existing buildings on the site. Members will recall that this application was presented to committee on the 6th of October, where a decision was deferred in order to allow members to undertake a site visit. Members visited the site on Wednesday, the 28th of October. The application site comprises a plot of land to the southwest of 715 Preston Road in Clayton Woods that was previously used for horticulture and part of which forms the garden to this dwelling. The site is located within the settlement area of Clayton Woods, where there's a presumption in favour of sustainable development as set out in the framework and the Chorley local plan, and the site has good access to amenities and public transport. The development of the site would not be harmful to the character of the area or the amenity of any neighbouring occupiers and is considered to be acceptable in principle. The access road will be realigned, widened and resurfaced to the point at which it joins the adopted highway and would provide access to the parking areas serving the proposed dwellings in addition to a turning head. Adequate parking will be provided in line with the council's parking standards, in addition to providing 2 spaces for the existing dwelling at 715 Preston Road. LCC Highways have assessed the scheme and raised no objection. All of the matters are acceptable subject to conditions and appropriate mitigation measures. Overall, the proposed development is considered to be in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out in the report and on the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Ian. Right, Tim, would you like to make your representations? And
Okay.
Alex, can you start the timer, please?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, I understand that the committee has visited the site to assess the application, and hopefully we're able to note the position of the remaining gate post in the area where the removed gate post was originally sited. I'm not going to repeat everything that I said at last meeting, but I just wanted to reinforce 2 points. Firstly, I maintain that the gate post stroke gateway is absolutely the marker of the boundary of the listed building at Hawksclough, and therefore very much represents the curtilage and not merely something which contributes to the setting of the building. The lane leading to Hawksclough is shown on the 1840s Ordnance Survey map, and the point at which the gate posts as they're sited can be seen on the map as a transition from public highway to private lane. And this is just not my opinion. Chorley Council also effectively agreed with this through, and I can reference this through email correspondence between me and the planning officers when the gate post was removed unlawfully a year or so ago. And I have forwarded that email trail for you to look at. In fact, Ian Hayward, who was the conservation officer at the time, opened an enforcement case because he felt that this was in breach of the listed building status of the site. So it does kind of reinforce the fact that that gateway is part of the curtilage of the listed building. I've now reinstated the gate post. I did that at the weekend in its original position, and I've sent photographs. I don't know if you had sight of those, but the gateway makes a clear and very significant statement as to the entrance to the old farm estate. And then my second point is that now the gate post has been reinstated, the applicant will not be able to fulfil the conditions applied to the application, namely that the road widening, the layout, the pavements, etc., that the Highways Authority has specified as being requirements that cannot be met, because the gate post will end up in the middle of the new access road. And the gate post is my private property, as is the land on which it stands. So its removal would require my permission, which I'm not willing to grant, and this effectively makes the scheme undeliverable. That's really all I wanted to say. I don't want to labour the point, but I just want to thank you for giving the opportunity to speak. And I just think that the application should be refused because of the points that I've made. Thank you, Chair.
Muted, June.
Did all that be muted? Thanks for that, Tim.
Okay.
Rachel, would you like to make your representations? And Alex, can you start the timer, please?
Thank you, Chair and members. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the applicants, who are a local company specialising in high quality conversions and new build homes. Members will have clearly seen on their site visit that there would be no impact on the listed building down the lane as a result of the proposals. The principle of additional residential development on the site was established in the previous application, which allowed for 2 new dwellings here in 2018, as set out in the officer's report. The principle of the scheme is considered acceptable given that the site is located within the settlement boundary of Clayton Brook, and there is therefore a location where development is directed towards, as opposed to the sites in the open countryside and greenbelt. Whereas the previous approval on the site allowed for 2 large detached dwellings, the proposal now before members is for 6 smaller dwellings arranged in 2 blocks of 3, which are considered to better reflect the existing scale, character and grain of development in the immediate vicinity. The design of the houses takes cues from the existing development on this lane, using a style and materials which are considered to fit well in this location. The development would see the removal of a number of existing structures which were associated with the site to grow produce for the previous owner's florist business. In its place will be 6 high quality dwellings, each providing 2 bedrooms with private gardens and dedicated private parking spaces. There are numerous trees around the site which provide a high level of screening to the rear and which will be retained as part of the proposals. During the course of the application, we have worked with the council to amend the scheme to ensure it is acceptable. This involved the reduction of the number of dwellings to ensure that all the dwellings fall within the settlement boundary. We note members' request on the previous committee meeting to provide parking for residents at neighbouring 717 and 719. LCC Highways have categorically stated that this is not necessary. It is not the responsibility of the applicants to provide parking spaces for these properties. Therefore, the proposals have not been amended in this regard. Giving LCC's Highways agreement to the proposals, we see no reason for refusal on this basis. Members should note that the LCC Highways have suggested other amendments to the scheme, which the applicant has addressed during the course of the application, and LCC are now happy with the proposals, can be accessed safely and efficiently from Preston Road. The principle of development is acceptable, and there are no technical matters which would suggest planning permission should not be granted. The proposals are in line with the development plan and further would make a small yet valuable contribution to the housing delivery in Chorley within the existing settlement boundary. I note the previous speaker's comments relating to the gate post, but given this is a civil matter as opposed to a planning matter as detailed in the addendum, we see no reason for the refusal on this basis. I would urge Planning Committee to approve this application in line with the recommendation.
Thank you. Right, I'll now invite members for their comments and ask any questions. If you want to do so, please raise your hand virtually on Teams. Any comments from anybody, please? Somebody. Ian, do you want to come back on something?
Yes, please,
first,
Chair,
before I get to...
Yes, please, yeah, if I may. Just in relation to the comments of the speaker there, in relation to the extent of the curtilage of the listed building at Hawks Clough, we have the council has asked an independent conservation planner to look into this, and they've considered the sort of the extent of the curtilage of the listed building in relation to the appropriate tests, and they don't consider that it is in the curtilage of the listed building, and therefore the gateposts wouldn't be listed by association. The other factor in relation to the removal of the gate post or the ownership of the access road is a civil matter that would have to be resolved outside of the planning process. That's all. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, I've got Councillor Morwood, Councillor Whittaker, Councillor Gordon-Franz and Councillor Boardman. Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll start the ball rolling. I went on the site visit. It's an interesting site, a bit of a challenging site, but that's up to the developers, and they say they can build. I'm quite happy with the scale of the site. The houses, it's a nice design. and so forth. And on the face of it, I have no problems with it. I accept the gate posts and the ownership of the road is as a civil matter, and it's really up to the developer and the owner of Hawksclough Farm to sort that out. And if they can't, then he's quite right, it can't be developed. But that's the chance that the developers will have to take. But at the moment, I'm quite happy with it and happy to accept the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. I went on the site visit. I have to say it's the weirdest site I've ever seen in 30 years. It's 20 foot lower than the track that's supposed to be a road that's supposed to be going up. The buildings that the applicant said were being removed were greenhouses. They said that the previous application was for 2 properties. This is for 6 properties. They're going to have to get access onto the busy A6 road. 6 properties, a dozen cars maybe these days. I don't know. It's the worst planning application I've ever seen. I wouldn't like, and I was appalled that we're going to inflict that on some poor souls that are going to get into these houses. I think we owe it better than that. It's the worst site I've ever seen. I'm going to vote against it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Gordon Franz.
Yeah, I think reasons to object to this application unfortunately have been taken away from us by virtue of the gatepost not being seen as part of the heritage building. Whilst I agree with some of the comments Alan has made, I can't really see a reason to refuse it within the planning framework. Okay.
Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I don't have a reason for refusing the application. I would be minded to say that I think the number of houses which are standing at 6, I believe, which are really very small, would cause quite a significant amount of traffic movements in and out of that little estate. We work on about approximately 2 vehicles per dwelling, so looking at 12 vehicles down there, which I think, as Councillor Whitaker said, is very difficult to access that site. So I do have concerns about that. I believe highways don't seem to have that concern. I would like to just drill down this gatepost a little bit and ask the planning officer really if he can just cite it for us and just indicate where that is with regards to the proposed site plan.
Okay.
Just so for our reference we know where that is. Chair.
Ian, could you do that, please?
I'll try, yes. We're looking at the presentation.
Yes, on the hybrid proposed
that it
site
would be
plan.
Yes. So it's not identified on that site plan, which would make it a bit. I think yes, right, okay. So you can see an outline, a dotted blue outline close to the entrance, which is a garage that would be removed. You can and then you can see in the in the highway that's identified in a kind of a pink colour, in a faint blue line, the position that does appear to be the position of the gatepost, although it's not annotated. But that looks around about the position that I saw it when I went on the site visit. So I would suggest that is it.
So just to come back in on that one, the gatepost is sited on the corner of the green building, is it?
Sorry, through you, Chair, again. Yeah, it's difficult to explain. In front of Unit 2, I think that's probably the best way to put it. So, plot 2, it's the middle of the first block of dwellings that you would come to. If you were to look at the access road in front of plot 2, you can see a faint dotted line, and there's a measurement taken on the plan and the gate post is just in front of that measurement that says 4.5 meters. So that's the position of the post.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think it, as the other councillors said, it is a civil matter for that. So it doesn't really affect our planning decision. But good luck of getting that one over the line.
Right. Thanks, Councillor Hargreaves.
Likewise, obviously, unfortunately, the position of the gate post is a civil matter. I do feel sorry for the applicant in this respect. The actual 6 houses, they fit in quite nicely at the back. I have to say it's very noisy. I don't think I'd want to live by the motorway, particularly the M6. But hopefully the road will be paved, and it will be tarmacked to the point that it's wider to allow the access for these cars in and out of that access road, if it's permitted that they can access the road. And also, one of the things I did notice that with another council is that one of the houses veering towards Cewden Valley, going down the hill, appeared to be, the pathway of the side of the house appears to be in the green belt, in the land just that moves into the green belt. And I just wanted to confirm that with the planning officers.
Ian?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yeah, yes, part of the application site does fall within the green belt, the southwest part of the site. And if you look at the proposed site plan on the slides there, it's shown by a dotted green line. Now there is a condition proposed, recommended to be attached, that would require boundary details, and that part of the site that's in the green belt would remain undeveloped, and there would be a boundary along that. We would expect to see a boundary along that dotted green line to separate the development site from the part of the green belt that wouldn't be developed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Just one point to that, I understand what you're saying, but to me, one of the pathways at the side of that end house appears to be sat in that bit of land, in that's designated green belt. And I just wondered if it was supposed to be there, the actual pathway running at the side of the house, at the gable end of the house.
Through you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, yes, that would appear to be the case. It would be an engineering operation to develop a pathway in the green belt, which is something that is an exception to inappropriate development, so long as it doesn't impact on openness. But yes, that part of the site would fall within the green belt slightly.
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to make any comments? No,
Just the final one.
Sorry, Councillor Morwood.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll just get the old video up. Just to come back on Councillor Whittaker, we've seen far worse, really. But anyway, at the end of the day, people will look at that site and say, I want to live here or I don't want to live here. Yes, it's noisy as we stand there, but from inside there'll be no doubt triple glazing and all the rest of it. The road will be improved, and yes, there will be difficulties, I suspect, as there is everywhere these days, trying to pull out. I have great difficulty trying to get out of my dentist for the very same reason. It's up to people at the end of the day to go to these houses and say, no, it's not for me, or it is. People need houses. These are small houses, two bedrooms, which it makes a change. I'm getting rather tired of the 3, 4 and 5 bedroom houses. We want more of these smaller properties, so I think we should approve it. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments? If not, who's got their hand up now? Councillor France.
I'd just like to second Councillor Morwood.
Okay, I was just going to ask that. So when I say we've got a proposer, that's Councillor Morwood's proposed it, seconded by Councillor France. I'll go through the members alphabetically: for, against, or abstain for the officer recommendation. Councillor Boardman.
For.
you. Councillor Dalton.
4.
Councillor France. Gordon France.
4.
Councillor G.
4.
Councillor Gray.
4.
Councillor Hargreaves.
4.
Councillor Hill.
4.
Councillor Morwood.
4.
Councillor Whittam.
4.
Councillor Whitaker.
Against.
Councillor France. Chris France.
4.
And myself 4. Alex, do you want to confirm the outcome, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve the application subject to the conditions in the report.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on, item 3B has been withdrawn. So we go on to item 3C, Royal Umpire Caravan Park, Southport Road, Waltham, pages 39 to 66. Adele's going to present this item. I have 3 registered speakers, Parish Councillor Pam Sloan, Ward Councillor Paul Sloan, and the agent Rachel Leather. Councillor Sloan, can you confirm you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
Hi.
That's one.
Pamela Sloan.
Thank you. Paul Sloan.
Yeah, I can hear you, Chair.
Okay. Rachel.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Adele, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. The application site forms part of an existing touring caravan park on Southport Road, Preston, close to Leyland Garden Centre. Planning permission was previously refused in 2016 for the change of use of a field adjacent to the existing caravan park to a caravan park with 94 static holiday caravans and associated hard standings and access roads accessed through the existing caravan site, based upon the proposal being inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. Members will recall that more recently, in March of this year, planning permission was refused by committee for the reconfiguration of the existing caravan park from touring caravan pitches to static caravan pitches, and for the provision of static caravan pitches in the adjacent tented camping area. The application was refused due to being inappropriate development in the Greenbelt and conflicting with one of the 5 purposes of including land within it through encroachment into the countryside. Unlike the previously refused proposals, the current proposal only relates to the eastern part of the applicant's land, which is currently used for touring caravan pitches, and not the adjacent green field, undeveloped land included in the previous proposals. The proposal would effectively replace 201 touring pitches with 114 static pitches with associated infrastructure. The existing toilet block would be removed as part of the proposal. Each pitch would accommodate 1 static caravan and space to park 1 vehicle. A terrace would be included to the front and a garden area to the side. Excuse me. There have been 7 neighbour objections received to the scheme, in addition to 1 objection from the Parish Council, based on a number of issues, including impacts upon the Greenbelt, visual impacts, antisocial behaviour, flood risk, harm to biodiversity, noise and disturbance, and concern that the static caravans will be used for permanent residences and highways impacts. No objections have been received from technical consultees, and the applicant has agreed to implement a range of off-site improvement works to rights of way and to 4 bus stops requested by LCC Highways. Whilst the proposal would reduce the number of caravan pitches from 201 to 114, the nature of impacts upon the Greenbelt associated with the existing touring pitches are transient, whereas the static caravans would introduce a permanent impact. Further, the static caravans themselves would have a larger footprint than the touring caravans. The proposed static caravans would not therefore preserve the openness of the Greenbelt, and the effect upon openness would be a permanent one. The proposal is therefore considered to represent inappropriate development, which, as identified within the framework, should only be approved in very special circumstances, and that these circumstances are sufficient to clearly outweigh the harm that would be caused by reason of inappropriateness. The applicant has advanced evidence relating to the social, economic and environmental benefits, which are detailed in the main report, which they consider weigh in favour of the development, and these, as I say, are outlined in the report. A careful balancing of material considerations needs to be applied to this application. Members will be aware that the fundamental aim of Greenbelt policy is to prevent urban sprawl by keeping land permanently open. On the other hand, the framework aims to support rural businesses and to increase opportunities for tourism and access to outdoor recreation. The harm to the openness of the Greenbelt in this instance is considered to be slight when one balances the current transit impacts from up to 201 caravans located at the site against the permanent impacts of 114 large static caravans. That is a judgment. The material considerations put forward are considered to provide sufficient weight in favour of the proposal, and in terms of the framework in this case, it is considered that cumulatively the economic, social and environmental benefits outweigh the environmental dimension from Greenbelt harm of the holiday static caravans. Very special circumstances exist, therefore, that are sufficient to clearly outweigh this harm through reason of inappropriateness. Other issues relating to ecology impacts, highway impacts, landscaping, drainage and the occupation of the caravans can be controlled by planning conditions. On balance, therefore, members, it is considered that the application is acceptable and it is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Muted, June.
So I am. I did all that without, you know. Councillor Beaver's joined the meeting, as I was saying. Pam, would you like to make your representations? And Alex, start the timer.
Yes, just 1 minute, please. That's my timer. Thank you. The following is made with reference to points 143, 144 and 145 of the Planning Policy Framework and point 719 of the Chorley Local Plan, which set out the policy on development of the Greenbelt. The fact that the Greenbelt has already experienced some development should not open the doors to it later being intensively, inappropriately overdeveloped. For example, a Greenbelt site might have a small number of low-density houses, but that doesn't mean that in some time in the future that flats could be replacing them. Changing temporary small touring caravans to permanent large static vans is inappropriate intensification of the development in the Greenbelt. There are no benefits for the local area with this proposal and no benefits for local people, Chorley constituents, whose quality of life will be harmed into the foreseeable future. Only the Harrison Caravan Park Company benefits. The applicant has provided no evidence nor made a credible case that the area would benefit economically, socially or environmentally. Of the supposed jobs, the applicant doesn't say how many people are employed at present and whether this number would increase, nor is the nature of the employment detailed. Are jobs temporary, permanent, part-time, 0 hours, are they skilled, low-skilled, well-paid? As for environmental benefit, the applicant has provided no evidence, just unsupported claims. Social benefits, the applicant tacitly admits there is none. Quote, the social benefits arising from the proposals are related to the economic benefits, unquote. Not only are there no social benefits, the applicant himself states, quote, the problems experienced by the park have negatively impacted the local area, harming the amenity of nearby dwellings and impacting on other local businesses, unquote. I can provide actual evidence of numerous documented incidents of noise and antisocial behaviour. The applicant cannot provide any evidence at all that the economic, social and environmental benefits constitute, quote, the very special circumstances, unquote, necessary that future development, intensification of the development in the Greenbelt be approved. Is it right that the surrounding area and local people should be disadvantaged to allow the Harrison Caravan Park Company to expand? Chorley Council decided against a very similar proposal only 6 months ago. Why has this decision been challenged when there has been no major change of circumstance? The fact that the field that was part of the previous proposal has now been removed does not make the part that remains any more appropriate for further development. The original decision to reject the proposal did not depend on the inclusion or exclusion of this field. Please support local villagers and refuse to overturn the decision to deny planning permission made in March. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sloan, would you like to make your representations, please? Alex,
Yeah,
can
cheers.
you start the
Thanks,
timer?
Chair. Okay. As ward councillor for the area this development affects, I'm urging this committee to refuse planning permission on the basis that the very special circumstances aren't demonstrated by this proposal to allow this development in the Greenbelt. I draw councillors' attention to the MPPF framework point 143 and 144, which talks about very special circumstances. The proposal also demonstrates intensification of development within the Greenbelt. Point 145 of the MPPF and point 719 of the Chorley Local Plan state, redevelopment of previous developed land should not have a greater impact on the openness of Greenbelt than the existing development, or not cause substantial harm to the openness of Greenbelt. The development should respect the character of the landscape and have regard to the need to integrate the development with its surroundings. Now, the openness of the Greenbelt will be impacted by the presence of these static caravans, with the caravans being substantially higher and longer than the touring vans that visit this site. Furthermore, whilst touring vans come and go, it is rare that all 201 pitches are actually in use at any one time. This development instead will result in 114 static caravans permanently based on site all year round. The presence of 114 permanent static caravans will also increase the rate of runoff from the site. Currently, rain falling on the empty pitches is dispersed and allows for greater absorption, slowing runoff. To address runoff, the application proposes 3-metre high drain pipes draining into fields. These drain pipes will result in increased concentrated flows of water into areas, resulting in greater runoff and increased erosion. This runoff will end up flowing into the River Lostock, which in turn flows into the River Yarrow, which is the confluence of which is just downstream of Croston. There's potential to increase the flood risk to Croston from the west of the village, which in turn undermines the resources Chorley Borough Council has invested in the Yarrow Valley, in the Yarrow barrage. The application talks of reduction in vehicle movements due to the reduction in the number of pitches, yet the increase in occupancy undermines this. There is also no traffic modelling figures or predictions as to give us what impacts this will have on what are already busy roads. Additionally, the application is optimistic in stating that public transport will be used, minimising the increased traffic. There are no Sunday services at the nearest train station, Croston. The length of time required to get to local attractions in the region, such as Blackpool and Southport, using public transport makes its use impractical. Returning once again to the circumstances to justify this development, whilst the application states there is a lack of alternatives, there are in fact 20 alternative caravan sites within a 13-mile radius of this site. The proposal also makes the case the reason for falling occupancy at the site is due to antisocial behaviour. Whilst they've provided a table showing falling rates of occupancy, this table doesn't actually demonstrate the reason for occupancy is the result of antisocial behaviour. There could be other factors at play causing the decrease in occupancy. If so, the intensification of development demonstrated by this proposal will not address this issue. It would therefore be reasonable to ask the owners of the site that do more to reduce the antisocial behaviour and therefore demonstrate its effects on occupancy. Furthermore, it states the use of static caravans will reduce antisocial behaviour, yet no evidence is provided to support this. In fact, with each static caravan now capable of sleeping 6, there's the increase in occupancy could result in increasing antisocial behaviour. The application does not state any social benefits, instead tying them to economic benefits. No figures are provided in terms of the boost to local businesses or on the number and total jobs provided by the development. It's on the grounds that a lot of the proposed benefits are based upon speculation, such as the reasons for falling occupancy and the addressing of antisocial behaviour and the economic benefits of the local area, with little or no facts and figures to support. I ask that the committee rejects this application on the grounds that very special circumstances have not been demonstrated to justify the impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, would you like to make your representations now? Alex, can you start the timer?
Thank you, Chair and members. Tonight, on behalf of the applicants who operate the existing Royal Umpire Caravan Park, which has been operating from the site for approximately 35 years. The site is located on previously development site in the Greenbelt. However, the site is visually contained and distinct from the more open countryside around it. As members will be aware, in 2019, the site was subject to a planning application which involved the reconfiguration of the eastern and western field. Compared with the 2019 application, this proposal represents a significant reduction in development, as the application before members only involves the reconfiguration of the eastern field. Considering the proposal in detail, this application seeks to reconfigure the existing Royal Umpire Caravan Park, replacing the 201 touring pitches with 114 static caravans. Whilst the individual static caravans would be larger than a typical caravan, there would be a significant reduction in the number of caravans across the site and associated vehicles. The Royal Umpire Caravan Park has experienced prolonged periods of crime and antisocial behaviour, which has resulted in the reduction of occupancy rates. Through the removal of touring pitches, it is anticipated that the proposed scheme would eradicate these issues. This, in turn, would assist with the upturn in occupancy rates at the site, resulting in the long-term viability of the park and ultimately contributing towards boosting the local economy. Whilst caravan parks in general are experiencing an upward trend, it is specifically the static caravan market that has seen the most growth. This further demonstrates the need for diversification to respond to the market shifts and ensure a continued and important contribution to the local economy and local businesses. During the application process, the applicant has agreed a package of highway improvement measures of walking and cycling provisions in the facility and improvements to nearby bus stops. Therefore, in terms of highways, the proposal is considered acceptable in planning terms. There are no other technical matters which would preclude the grant of planning permission. On this basis, the officer's report concludes that very special circumstances exist which are considered to outweigh the minimal harm to the Greenbelt by reason of its inappropriateness. Therefore, the proposal is considered compliant with both local and national policy, and there are no technical matters which would suggest that planning permission should not be granted. Approval of this scheme would ensure the long-term viability of an existing rural business and make a significant contribution to the local economy in Chorley. We ask members to support this application in line with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, over to you, members. I've got Councillor Hilton and Councillor Whittaker to start with. Councillor Hilton.
Thank you, Chair. We've clearly been here before to some extent. This has been refused before. From looking at this, the static caravans are large permanent structures, and this has the potential to become a new mini village with permanent residents. I do believe that the National Planning Framework is quite clear in stating that there do have to be very special circumstances to approve development in the Greenbelt. I don't believe any of this economic, social and environmental conditions from the site will actually improve anything at all. And I certainly don't believe these are special circumstances which would outweigh the harm, particularly the environmental harm. I think it will have a significant impact on the openness of the Greenbelt as well, due to the large permanent structures. So I do believe that this is inappropriate development of the Greenbelt. I appreciate this is a judgment call, as Adele has already said. But my judgment is that this will cause unacceptable harm. We need to protect our Greenbelt, and therefore I move for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Whittaker.
Thanks, Chair. Alex has covered a few things, but I've just got a few comments to make. The report itself, I gave way to nobody in my admiration for Adele in terms of the accuracy of her minutes and agendas, rather, but this report is full of contradictions. It was refused in 2016. It was refused in 2020. What we're now looking at is 201 touring vans to 114 static vans. And tonight, look at the pictures that were sent out tonight. It doesn't look more like a static van. It looks like Stalag Luft 3 to me. It's jam packed with 114 caravans. Say 2 or 3 people a shot. It's awful. It says in paragraph 8 the toilet blocks been removed to be replaced by what? Presumably, I know caravans have got toilets in them, but I would have thought something like that. And then existing tourers are, one of the arguments that are made is that the parish council referred to. The existing touring vans seem to be in permanent use by seasonal workers. And I really believe that this is the case. Paragraph 13 talks about improving the bus stops with very few bus services. It's just ridiculous. And as Paul said, bus to get where? To get to Blackpool, to get to Southport. Most people who come to on static vans come in their own cars. I expect they'll go rather than sit outside on Leyland Road. It talks about, in the report, it talks about special circumstances should be there to outweigh the damage to the green belt, and there are no, otherwise it's inappropriate, and there are no special circumstances. When I went through the report, I couldn't believe that it was still recommended for permission. Now, the appellant's case, which he very clearly and very honestly and not very wisely says, there's been a lot of antisocial behaviour on this site. He's been running the site for 10 years, or how many? What has he done about that? Crime reduction, crime ridden. Well, and these are going to be might help. We're going to have a situation where there's going to be 250 people there if they're fully occupied. Looking at that. Tourism, I don't think so. Benefits to the community, I don't think so. One of the things, it's in paragraph 78, which I don't understand, and somebody will maybe tell me, it talks about, is this chargeable for CIL? Yes, but the rate is 0. So there's no benefit in CIL of that. The framework, if this satisfies the framework, then the framework needs to be changing, because in my view, I agree with Alex, there is nothing in this report that clearly outweighs the damage to the green belt. I'd like to second Alex's proposal for a refusal. I'll give you notice, Chair. If that's passed, I'll be very pleased. If it's not passed, I'll give you notice of another proposition.
Okay. Sorry. Councillor, I've got Councillor France, Councillor Boardman. Councillor Gordon-France.
Hi, Chair. I'd just like to reference page 24, paragraph 23. Now, I go along with most of what's said in that. I've just got to find the other one. But it ends up by saying the impact is only slight in magnitude. Now, that's the one bit that I do disagree with, because in actual fact, I think going from just over 200 touring caravans to 114 permanent structures just doesn't do it for me. And I do think it impacts on the green belt. And the other thing I'd also like to raise is page 25, and it calls it purpose 3, which touring to static caravans would not result in encroachment. I think it does. And I know on page 28, paragraph 50, it does show, the basis of the business, and I want to support local businesses. But I think there are reasons made for that. So I'll end at that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I think councillors have said most of what I was going to say. I'm going to go straight to this argument of weight and balance, and what we're looking at here against 200, well, should we say, semi-permanent touring caravans and 100 permanent static caravans. Yes, I think we're well aware the site is used for some permanent occupancy on some touring vans. But I think we're looking at an opportunity here by the applicant to try and tidy the site up. I think the unfortunate thing is he's going to try and tidy the site up, but it's going to have a real detrimental impact on the openness of this green belt in that area. Where in paragraph 74 it says a careful balancing of material considers need to be applied to the application. I think that is absolutely correct. I think on balance, I'm going to go with the opening statement that's in paragraph 79, which is the proposed development is inappropriate development in the greenbelt and therefore harmful by definition. I don't think there's any special circumstances to outweigh that, so I'd more than happily go against the officer's recommendation in this case and move for refusal.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Boardman. Does anybody else want to make any comments? I have a proposer and a seconder for refusal on the grounds of the inappropriateness in the green belt. Is everybody happy with that? If so, nobody's saying no, so I assume you're all in favour of that. So, Alex, do you want to confirm the outcome?
Yes, members are satisfied that the application should be refused on the grounds that it's inappropriate development in the green belt and on no very special circumstances otherwise, and there's been no opposition registered contrary to that grounds for refusal.
Okay, thank you. Item 3D is withdrawn. Item 3E, Stagecoach North West Bus Depot, East Lane, pages 68 to 120 with an update on your addendum. Adele's going to present this item and I have registered speakers. I have an objector, Karen Sutcliffe, and the agent, Harvinder Awanda. Karen, Harvinder, can you confirm you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
I can, yes.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Adele, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The application site is located on the western side of Eves Lane in East Chorley and covers 2.6 hectares of land consisting of the former Stagecoach Bus Depot building, the associated external yard area, part of Silverdale Road and the Tatton Recreation Ground, including the bowling and community centre buildings. The demolition of the bus depot falls within the remit of permitted development under the provisions of the General Permitted Development Order, and the Council approved the method of demolition in September 2020 by virtue of a prior approval application. The application itself seeks planning permission for the demolition of the community centre, incorporating a nursery and the bowling club hut on Tatton Recreation Ground, and then the erection of a new building on Eves Lane incorporating a community centre, a children's nursery, cafe, hair salon, a GP surgery and pharmacy, and 62 assisted living apartments. A new bowling hut would be constructed on the Tatton Recreation Ground and the ground itself would be improved. Silverdale Road would be stopped up as part of the proposal as well. Representations have been received from 11 individuals raising objections covering issues such as overdevelopment of the site, concern about the height of the building, potential loss of light and overshadowing, loss of privacy, traffic congestion and insufficient car parking. Members will note that these matters are addressed in the report. 2 representations have also been received in support of the proposal. 1 objection has been received from technical consultees, with United Utilities objecting due to part of the proposal being built over their apparatus. Negotiations are ongoing and the applicant has proposed a potential solution to overcome this issue, which I think has now been reviewed by United Utilities, and they've indicated a general acceptance of the scheme. It's not considered in any event that this is a reason to refuse the planning application or delay its determination, as a solution can be found on this issue. The applicant has also agreed to implement a range of off-site improvement works requested by LCC Highways, and they would be secured by a 278 agreement, which includes a new puffing crossing on Eves Lane, improved footways, bus stops and road junctions, and a contribution of £6,000 for the monitoring of a travel plan for the new development to be secured by way of a Section 106 obligation. The application site is mostly surrounded by residential dwellings, and the applicant has taken on board feedback from pre-application advice discussions and ensured that the proposal complies with the Council's interface distances for such situations by ensuring that areas with windows facing the dwellings on Silverdale Road and Windermere Road serve corridors and communal areas rather than habitable rooms of apartments or balconies. This maintains the privacy of occupiers of surrounding dwellings. The proposed new main building would inevitably result in some overshadowing and impact on outlook for the occupiers of the dwellings on Windermere Road and Silverdale Road that face the application site. However, the existing building already causes such impacts to be experienced by the occupiers of these dwellings. The proposal would effectively add another storey to the eave site of the existing building, albeit with a flat roof, rather than the pitch roof of the existing building. Therefore, whilst there would be some harm arising from the overshadowing and impact on outlook, this would only be marginally worse than the current situation. Whilst the scheme would not result in overlooking or loss of privacy, there would be some additional overshadowing and impact on outlook. However, it is considered that on balance, the benefits of the proposal in freeing up existing housing stock, promoting investment in the district, redeveloping this rundown site, delivering social and economic benefits that are identified in the main report, and securing improvements to the recreation ground outweigh the slight impact caused to residential amenity. Other matters relating to ecology and landscaping can be dealt with by conditions. The proposal forms an appropriate form of development within a sustainable location and would provide much needed housing which would benefit the borough as a whole. No unacceptable impacts have been identified that outweigh the benefits of the proposal, and as such it is recommended the application is approved. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Karen, would you like to make your representations, please? And Alex, can you start the timer?
Firstly, I'd like to say that I'm happy that something's finally happening with the old Bud's Garage site. However, I strenuously object to these proposals in the current format. Silverdale and Windermere Roads will be most impacted by whatever's put in its place, and what we were originally told was going to be built was a lot less than the current plan, and we feel that our concerns have not been taken into account properly throughout this process. The size of the development is excessive for the site itself and not in keeping with the immediate area. It's a very modern 3-storey structure which will stick out like a sore thumb. And also, with it being 3 storeys, it will be taller than a lot of the current structure. And as it will surround our houses on Silverdale Road to the front and to the side at the end of the street, it's going to dwarf our houses and block out light, which we don't find acceptable. And in regards to the new apartments, 62 is far too many for the size of the site. When the bus garage was in use, parking was a nightmare, and the plans do not include anywhere near enough parking for the number of apartments. So we'd like to know where you think all their family and friends going to park when visiting them. The proposals are to make Silverdale Road a 2-way street and therefore remove some of the current parking facilities, which will mean there won't even be enough room for the 8 houses on the road to park, and we already struggle to park on our own street, and we'll then have more residents and visitors, plus people using the other facilities, using Silverdale Road as an overspill car park. We have inquired with LCC about permit parking, but they're not accepting any applications, and we would like the council to assist us in trying to get that system in place. I'm also concerned about the size of the building in relation to how long it will take to build. The development is so close to our houses that the noise will be a major disruption, especially to those of us who are at home all day due to COVID home working. When the houses were being built recently on Eves Lane, you felt every hit from the pile drivers. So that will be felt even more when they're being done just a few feet away from our front doors. And we've seen nothing in the planning proposals about any compensation for the disruption we're going to face for months on end while the development is being built. It's so close to our houses that it can't be said that it won't have a major effect on our daily lives. And the part of the development that goes into Tatton will see a lot of recreational land and trees taken away that just doesn't seem necessary. Tatton Rec was given to the residents of Chorley with the intention of it being used for leisure and recreation, not for it to be taken away and built on. And also, when the plans changed to no longer include building houses on Tatton, we didn't want this to then lead to an increase in the number of flats being built on the garage site, as seems to be the case. The whole proposal needs a serious rethink and needs to be scaled back. It's way too ambitious and is trying to cram too much into a site and surrounding area that just cannot support the increase in traffic and parking, despite what the reports say. It should be redesigned to be no more than 2 stories high. We're happy for the site to be redeveloped, but not to this extent, and we hope that whoever's making the decisions on this application puts themselves in the shoes of the surrounding residents and sees the disruption this is going to cause and asks you to get them to go back to the drawing board and scale back the plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvinder, would you like to make your representations? And Alex, can you start the timer, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. My name is Harry Randall from Triangle Architects. We have designed the proposal for the Tatton Assisted Living Scheme with Chorley Council. The proposals here before you have been developed in close collaboration with Chorley Council and the end user groups to create 62 new homes for the over 55s of Chorley and a new home for the local nursery and community centre. Alongside these community activities, the scheme contains a CAF, hair and beauty space, pharmacy and GP surgery. Our approach to this scheme has been to develop a design that provides excellent homes for the new residents and an environment that creates opportunities for social interaction between the residents with the inclusion of numerous meeting spaces and a private courtyard. And further, by having the community centre and CAF within the building, we've created an opportunity for residents to interact with the local community. For both the existing community centre and nursery, this development provides much new needed space. Their existing spaces are dated and in need of improvement, and we feel these proposals give them much needed modern and secure environments and a secure play area for the children. The CAF space provides opportunity for a local commercial venture, as does the health and beauty space, thus supporting the local economy. The GP surgery and the pharmacy are ideal functions to be located within a development of this nature, and also ideally located for the greater area with the bus stops proposed nearby. We have developed a design that attempts to minimise the mass of the building by treating the upper storey in a contrasting material and a flat roof. We have followed the detailed guidance set by the planning department for overlooking distances and avoided habitable windows overlooking neighbouring properties. We understand the concerns that local residents have in regards to parking provision in the area, and we have attempted to maximise the number of non-designated parking within the proposal with the provision of additional designated on-street parking and parking within the recreation ground. As such, we believe we have maintained and enhanced the existing on-street parking while also being able to provide additional secure parking for the assisted living scheme and spaces for the GP surgery. For the new assisted scheme, we have increased the number of parking spaces from the original proposal in liaison with LCC. We have also included a 2-space garage with the development to provide a car share scheme for the benefit of the residents. To improve access, we've also incorporated improvements noted by LCC, including a new crossing on Eves Lane. The proposed scheme has been designed to meet the local authority's target as a carbon neutral development and also includes PVs as part of that strategy. The recreation ground is well used, and the proposals improve and enhance the existing grounds with significant improvements to the current tarmac area, with the proposals having varying functions for the local community, including junior play area and the event space, which has great potential for incidental activities by the local community. We feel that the proposal brings numerous benefits to the neighbouring area. This proposal brings with it much needed affordable housing for the elder population of Chorley, the development of brownfield site in a prominent location, improvement to a much loved and used outdoor space, new and improved spaces for existing nursery and community centre in a purpose-built building with additional functions such as CAF, pharmacy, GP surgery and hairdressers. We believe these multiple functions contained within a well-designed and considered proposal will not only enhance surroundings but also bring greater use of the recreation ground and bring the building a cornerstone of the local community's built environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Does Adele, do you want to come back on anything or not? Okay, over to members. I've got Councillor Boardman at the moment. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank the Speaker, Karen, for speaking so eloquently and accurately in her assumptions and details on the application. It's not often that I will talk and speak against an application this council puts in, but I have to agree with the Speaker on this one. The massing and size of that building in an area which we know was built traditionally for workers' dwellings for the town and the factories around the town on Eves Lane and on Lytham Street, etc., and all around the Tatton area are small 2-storey terrace houses. This building dwarfs those and can be seen on the section elevations, which are shown on the street elevation drawing. The third one down clearly shows a side section of one of the existing dwellings set against the backdrop of this 3, and I would argue, stroke 4-storey monolithic structure. That's all I'm going to explain it as. It doesn't meet any design guidelines in relation to the architecture of the current area. It will be more at home in Salford or Manchester than it will be in Chorley. I'm really disappointed that the council has put something like this forward for that area. We knew the application was coming. What we didn't expect is a 3-storey monolithic flat roof building of that style. To be perfectly honest, I think it's wholly inappropriate to put something like that in that area.
it will have detrimental effect to the amenity of the local residents through its size and scale, and it will certainly have a detrimental effect on the residents that live at the rear. And I think the street at the rear is Silverdale Road. So unfortunately, I'll be voting against this application, and I think our council need to go back to the drawing board and revise their plans.
Right, thank you. I've got Councillor France and Councillor G. Councillor Gordon France.
I'd just like to say on this one, the GP surgery has been a badly needed thing on Eves Lane for some time, and we know the need for the over 50s accommodation by Primrose Gardens. So I would like to propose the officer's recommendation on this one.
Thank you, Councillor France. Have I got Councillor G?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Yes, I can remember the same arguments of this one when we did the other residential ones. People complained about the height of it, not in keeping with the area. There was a lot of objections about it, and now that it's built, it's in keeping with the area. I understand the residents' concern, but I think that this will fit in with it. It has fitted in Chorley with the one that we have in Chorley. So I'd like to second Councillor Francis' proposal.
Thank you. And anybody else wish to make any comments, please? Councillor Morwood.
Thank you. As Councillor G said, we had similar problems with Primrose Gardens, and it all came good. It's always difficult when modern buildings go up. We always like to think that we can build as we did centuries ago, but there has to come a point when you have to look at the benefits. Does it outweigh what is? I accept it is slightly bigger than I was expecting, but certainly the flats, the city flats, are needed. There's a waiting list for people who need this sort of accommodation. So it's very important that this sort of accommodation comes along. The other benefits along with the GP surgery and all the rest of it, the improved play area, I mean, that is just guaranteed, was required, needed, has been looked for years. And as I say, I accept that it is slightly out of scale, and that perhaps on reflection it might have been slightly better. But I think on the whole the benefits will outweigh it. And as I say, we can't keep trying to build properties in a similar style as we did all these years ago, because the needs have changed, and we have to move along with the times, as it were. And I think at the end of the day, people will appreciate the final building and the final site. I think we'll look back at it and think, yeah, it was worth doing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Beaver and Councillor Boardman again. Councillor Beaver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I agree with everything that's been said, both for and against this argument. But as Councillor Boardman mentioned, these properties were built to facilitate people living that worked in the factories. Those factories haven't been there for years. Chorley has changed beyond recognition, and to my mind, we need to change with it. One of the things we keep mentioning in council is about Chorley being a market town. Personally, I think we should get rid of that. We should go forward, not backwards. So I'm quite happy to go along with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, I've got Councillor Boardman and Councillor G. Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to come back on a couple of the comments. Number one, I'm wholly supportive of a development on this site and have been, as it's come up in every council meeting so far. Yes, the site does need developing. I fully agree with that, and I fully agree that Eves Lane does need a doctor's surgery. It is long overdue. Likewise, I agree that better facilities for the residents in that area are required, and a better outlook other than the Stagecoach garage.
is required as well by lots of the residents. But I think as councillors, we've got to be really mindful, and especially councillors that sit on the planning committee, that just because it's a council application, we don't get absolutely blinded by the fact that this building and the style of this building and the fact that it's 3-storey and with a turret in the centre, a glass turret in the centre, close to 4-storey, is very large in that area. So I'd really like you to have a serious look at it, proper look at it, to say yes, the benefits are there, but do the benefits outweigh the loss of amenity of the local residents for the size and scale of this building? We talked about style. No one would say that we'd put a building up that's made of brick and there's a slate roof and can accommodate 62 apartments. Wholly in favour of modern architecture and modern buildings, but they have to be in the right place. And I agree that the one at in the town centre, Primrose Gardens, looks fantastic. I don't think I was even one of the councillors that even complained again about that, because it fits in with the keeping of the town centre. But this, at this location, I think we need to question it.
Okay, Councillor G, and then I've got Councillor Whitaker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That area of where the bus station is, it's desperate for regeneration. It'll bring upgrade the area, upgrade the doctor's surgery, and I think it's important for Eve Lane that that goes ahead. I said that Councillor Bowman said that because it's a council's application that we're looking at it at a different light. I'm not. I'm looking at it as a planning member of the planning committee, regardless of whether it's a Chorley application or a private application. I'm looking at that, and I think it's important for that area that something like this is built there. It's important for the elderly people that something is there. They're crying out for these kind of accommodation, and I think, as I said before, I remember when Primrose Gardens were built, there was a lot of strong opposition for it, and it was ill-founded. People like the place now. It has regenerated that part of Chorley, and I think this will do the same for Eves Lane. So I'm more than happy to, as I said, second it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not happy that the suggestion that we will be influenced by the fact that this is a council application. I like to think that we're all looking at this objectively. When I looked at this, I thought that's a really good investment by the council. They're getting a GP surgery, they're getting improved recreational ground, and they're getting much needed senior citizens accommodation. Now, it'd be wonderful if we could get everything all in one thing, but I think this is perfectly acceptable, and I'm going to vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. Councillor Hargreaves.
I understand what Councillor Boardman is saying about the scale and the size, and certainly Karen, who spoke, because it is sort of quite a big modern building amongst these old terraced houses. I'm just wondering what it will look like when it's finished, but there are some of these modern buildings that look absolutely fantastic, like Primrose Gardens is a good example. But I think the size and the scale would frighten anybody, but the whole aspect and the whole plan and the amenities it's going to offer are more beneficial than it just being perhaps something that they're not used to or they would not expect within their area.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments? If not, I'm going to move to the vote. I've had a proposer and a seconder for the officer recommendation and nothing else, but I'm going to go through everybody to vote for, against or abstain, please. Councillor Beaver, for or against?
For,
You've
Madam
used,
Chair.
thank you. Councillor Boardman.
Against, Madam Chair.
Councillor Dalton.
For, Chair.
Councillor Gordon-France.
For.
Councillor G.
For, Chair.
Councillor Gray.
For.
Councillor Hargreaves.
For.
Councillor Hilton.
For.
Councillor Morwood.
For.
Councillor Whittam.
4.
Councillor Whitaker.
4.
Councillor Chris France.
4.
And myself 4. Okay, Alex, can you confirm the outcome, please?
Thank you, Chair. Members have voted to approve the application subject to conditions and a Section 106 legal agreement.
Okay, right. Moving on, item 3F, lands the rear of Brookfield, Oak Lane, Exton, pages 121 to 160. Ian's going to present this item, and I have 2 registered speakers, the objector, Joan Thompson, and the agent, Ben Batty. Joan and Ben, can you confirm that you're able to speak and hear the proceedings?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Joan? Doesn't seem to be there. Ian, can you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application is a Chorley Council application seeking full planning permission for the erection of 6 buildings comprising employment use classes, supporting office and light industrial, storage and distribution, and general industrial uses. The application site is located on Exton Lane to the west of the Digital Health Park and is within the settlement area. The site is allocated for employment development within the Chorley local plan, and the proposal is therefore acceptable in principle. Furthermore, it is noted that outline planning permission for such a development was granted in 2019. The proposed development will be prominent when viewed from Exton Lane and would have the appearance of a modern industrial estate. The height of the units would increase through the site away from Exton Lane, whilst peripheral landscaping will be retained and enhanced. Overall, the appearance of the development will be appropriate for the planned use of the site. There are 2 residential properties at Brookfield and Ingholm to the southwest corner of the site that will be most affected by the proposed development. The greatest physical impact will be from the acoustic bund and fence that will be approximately 3.3 metres in height, and it would wrap around these properties at a distance of 4 metres from the garden boundaries, with the intention of reducing noise impacts from the development. It's not considered that the presence of the acoustic barrier or the units themselves would have an unacceptable impact on the amenity of the occupiers of these dwellings. It's also considered that the noise impacts generated from the site can be adequately mitigated, subject to the inclusion of a condition requiring a further noise assessment to be carried out. The highway impacts of the development have been assessed by LCC Highways and are considered to be acceptable. Drainage impacts have been assessed by the lead local flood authority and are considered to be acceptable, subject to the provision of a detailed drainage plan. The presence of United Utilities assets and other on-site drainage infrastructure are issues to be resolved between the applicant and any necessary stakeholders, and discussions are currently underway between the council and United Utilities. All of the matters are acceptable subject to conditions and are covered in detail within the committee report, and overall the application is considered to be acceptable in accordance with the policies of the development plan and is recommended for approval subject to a Section 106 agreement and the conditions set out on the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Joan, would you like to make your representations? We don't seem to have Joan with us.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, yes. Okay. Do you want to make your representations now?
Right, thank you.
Alex, can you start the timer, please?
I am speaking on behalf of the residents of Ingholm and Brookfield, Exton Lane. Mrs. Hayes, Ingholm, and my husband and I, Brookfield, have lived in these properties for well over 40 years and are devastated by the plans. A plan to build houses would not be good, but an industrial development would destroy the tranquil setting of our homes and will be an ugly intrusion in the landscape. Looking at the development of the site in general, the land to be developed is one of the only areas north of Exton Lane that is still under agricultural use, and it forms a development green buffer between Exton and Chorley. It's important to remain such a gap between these 2 places. The ecological survey and assessment gives guidelines on how the developer should proceed to conserve wildlife. Has the developer taken this on board? I see no signs of the narrow pond on the western boundary that has been suggested to help with the great crested newts. Moving on specifically to the effect it will have on our home, which will be severe and detrimental. It will change our situation from rural to industrial. It will severely devalue our houses and the pleasure we get from them and their gardens. We are very concerned about the noise and light pollution in particular. Specific issues with the plans, the bund. The proposed bund and fence will total 3 metres tall, and at the tallest point it will be only 4 metres from our fence. This will give a claustrophobic stockade effect to the two houses. It is not at all acceptable. It will be like looking at a prison wall. It will cast shadows onto Inghome in the morning and so darken the garden. A 3-metre acoustic fence at the development edge of the buffer zone, 10 metres from our fence, would be more acceptable. The land in the buffer zone could be planted with native trees, which would then help soften the appearance in time. The current plan shows no trees on the bund on our side of the fence. The bund will do little to mitigate the 10-metre building that will be immediately beyond the buffer zone and looming over us. Who will be responsible for the maintenance of the fence and the buffer zone? We need access to our fence for maintenance. There is no obvious provision for this on the current plan. Although a gate is shown on the plan, there is no obvious access. Whatever barrier is decided upon, it needs to be installed before the work is done on the rest of the site so that we are protected from the disturbance of the building work. This is particularly important for Mrs. Hayes, who is elderly and frail. Orca Lane exit from the site. I am pleased to see that the Highways Agency has reported on this and plans have been changed so that it will not go ahead. We would like to see this option removed entirely and permanently from the plans to ensure the safety of the access to and from our lay-by and drive. Pedestrian access from Exton Lane. We would like to see this removed from the plans because it will encourage people to park in the lay-by in front of our houses. This is a service road for the houses and is essential as Exton Lane is a clearway. If this is taken over by people parking to gain access to the development, essential visitors such as refuse trucks, fire brigade, carers, etc. will not be able to gain access to the property and the residents to carry out their work. We are very much against this development.
Okay, thank you very much. Ben, would you like to make your representations, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Alex,
members.
can you start the timer? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. And thanks for the opportunity for me to speak on behalf of the applicant Chorley Council. My name is Ben Batty. I'm a director of Fletcher Ray and the lead consultant for the council. Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for your observations on the scheme as well. It must be remembered that there is an extant outline planning consent for B1 and B2 uses on this site, which consist of offices and general industrial purposes. This detailed application takes cognizance of the outline approved parameters, but seeks to add in the B8 use class to give the applicants as much flexibility on the site to attract new business and employment opportunities to the borough. The buildings are to be robustly designed and to be as sustainable as possible to minimise energy consumption and noise pollution. I note Mrs. Thompson comments upon the ecology, but there is a very robust ecology appraisal has been done on the scheme, and a pond for newt mitigation is being provided on the site, along with a hibernacular for other reptiles and animals on site. Conditions will be applied to the consent to deal with noise pollution, and any lighting will be designed to minimise / negate light pollution off the site. The bund will be attractively designed with dense landscaping to provide a visual screen to the development from outside the site, and will be topped with an acoustic fence to further reduce any noise emanating from the site. The bund will be maintained by the council, and the bund does not go all the way to Orca Lane due to the tree being covered by a TPO to the rear of the Brookfield and Inghome properties. Block C, which is units 12 to 16, is considered to be to have a more than adequate separation distance away from the houses, and once the landscaping matures will provide further protection to the houses. Any access to Olker Lane has been removed from the drawings, though it should be noted that no formal access was shown to Olker Lane on the planning drawings. It was merely only a future intention. Access for cyclists and pedestrians from Exton Lane has been shown to connect easily to the pedestrian footways on Exton Lane, nearby cycle routes and nearby bus stops. The lay-by in front of the houses would not be affected, and adequate parking facilities are to be provided on the site itself. We don't believe that the issue of the existing lay-by is a matter for consideration in this application, and is a matter that should be possibly resolved between the Highway Authority and the residents themselves. We therefore ask the members to support this application in line with the officer's recommendations.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor G.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. This has already got outlining planning permission for the area, and so we're just coming back again. I do have sympathy with the resident, Mr. Thompson, about close proximity of the area of the site. But when you look that we have Strawberry Garden just further up the road, you got a housing estate on one side, you got the railway line right behind, you got the big industrial area the other side of the railway line. This is just basically in keeping with the whole area. It does bring employment into the area, which is important. Some of the things she did say, I agree with that. I think there should be more planting between her land and the building area to deaden the noise. I think that'll be better. Trees were a lot nicer than fencing. So I would like to see that being put in if possible. So on those grounds, I'm happy to second the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? I've got a proposer for. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Councillor Marwood, Councillor Boardman have all sprung up all at once.
What Chorley is short of is not houses, it's industrial units, and this is an important part of Chorley's development. It's an important site. It's been earmarked as an industrial and housing, certainly at the Strawberry Field end. And I'm sure that the comments from the owners of the homes will be taken into consideration. That the tree, the bund, and so on, I think will be done in the best way possible, and I think overall it will benefit Chorley. So I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Boardman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, happy to support the officer's recommendation, and yes, much needed within Chorley. There is only one concern I've got, and it's the Olker Lane spine road at the side. We know this is used by pedestrians and cyclists at the moment, but it's also has the potential to be used for parking if, for instance, people want to nip into the adjacent unit to Olker Lane, as opposed to drive all the way around and through the traffic lights area. I just want to see if, and ask the planning officers, if there's a condition in place stating that Olker Lane cannot be used for parking, and also if the conditioning is in place with regards to the barrier that's supposed to be sited at the end, and when that is going to be positioned and who controls it.
Okay. Which one of you wants to answer that?
I will, if you, through you, Chair. Yes, please. Yes, Olker Lane is actually closed off to traffic and pedestrians and isn't accessible to the public. It lies outside the application site, so we're not able to impose any conditions upon it. The access that was originally shown on the plans has now been removed, so there will be no access from the site directly onto Olker Lane, and so the site in effect wouldn't interact with Olker Lane as proposed.
Okay,
thanks, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? So I've had a proposer and a seconder, and nobody's spoken any other way. If anybody, so I propose that everybody's happy with the officer recommendation unless they say otherwise. The silence says a lot. Okay, Alex, do you want to confirm that? Please.
Thank you, Chair. Members have approved the application subject to conditions in the Section 106 legal agreement.
Okay, I've got item 4 is the appeals report, pages 161 to 162, to be noted. Any comments on it, Adele, or not?
No, only to draw your attention to the decision at Pack Saddlebarn, where the appeal was dismissed for a single-storey rear extension, and to note that there's a new appeal against an enforcement notice that was served relating to land adjacent to 45 New Street in Eccleston. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thanks. Is it note that? Item 5, diversion of public right-of-way, footpath number 5, Whitley Woods, pages 163 to 168. The report's enclosed.
Shall we talk about this at length then?
It's
I'm
up to
joking.
you.
Because, no.
Says he from the comfort and warmth of his own home.
I am jesting.
Okay. Is that all right with everybody? Any comments? Okay, thank you. And urgent business, just one. Will you please note we have an additional meeting on Tuesday, the 24th of November. Get that in your diaries now. So once you've noted that, that's the end of the business at today's meeting. Thanks to everybody involved, and I now declare the meeting closed, and ICT can stop the recording.